worked with Tim, especially back in the Arnold days. He and I did some fun stuff with Paul McCartney and Fidelity with Arnold Artist thing, which was kind of cool. So you know he's a writer and a creative director, but you might not know he's been teaching creativity, persuasion, and entrepreneurship since 1999 at Emerson College. And he's been adjunct faculty at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design since 2008, where his most recent course was AI for artists and entrepreneurs. And he's been blogging about all of the above the whole time. So check out his free weekly newsletter. It's awesome at timbrunelle.substack.com. And with that, Tim, take it away.
Thanks, Will. This is daunting because some of you people are my heroes. Um, when you offer this up, Will, I was just scanning through the invite list. I'm like, holy shit, these are the people who like did work that inspired me to get into the industry. And then in some cases, I got to actually work with some of you, and you taught me things. And so it's a huge honor to be here with all of you today to do this stuff. So I'm going to share my screen, portion of the screen. Let's get through this. Go here. You should be seeing a generated image, the urgency of AI. And I should be down in the little corner there. So
Yeah, looks good.
great. Now I got to just, no, I don't want that there. Let me put that down here. Great. All right. Oh, okay. Sorry. Zoom. Yeah. So anyway, I think Rashad had a pretty good quote recently, kind of about the situation that we're in and the nature of change that we're going through, which has a corollary in history. I'm a fan of, Yuval and historians and things like that. So just as a mental exercise, so like I want you all to kind of imagine that we're living in Europe in the years before Gutenberg invented the printing press. So, there's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no TikTok. Everything that we own is made by hand, and kind of everything that's critical to our existence is communicated orally, like we're talking to each other. And we might be aware of one or two people in our city or our village who do this thing called reading or writing. But it's likely that you and we don't read and we don't write. All right. And then Gutenberg, right, builds on the traditions of movable type and brings the printing press to life, right? And he creates this interesting thing, right? So if you think about what occurred in the kind of like roughly 3-4 generations from the invention of the printing press to like now there's thousands of them across Europe. All of a sudden, stuff like contracts and invoices and laws and maps, never mind newspapers and novels, like became accessible and widespread. So the technology of the printing press created this urgency for education, right? It literally instilled this like need for schools, right? We didn't have a need for schools where you learned how to make stuff, but now all of a sudden you needed to learn how to read and write. And once you and I could read and write, all of a sudden ideas of culture and commerce and government completely changed, right? So I think that's an interesting corollary for where we're at right now. Obviously, tons of hype around AI and whatever, but as a person who's like reading a lot of the white papers, playing around with all the different technologies, and as a freelancer in the marketing space, like trying to gain advantage from all this stuff, I kind of feel like we are in as weird and transformative a phase as Europe was in the early 1500s when printing evangelized the benefits of reading and writing. So, I call it the third pivot. For those of us in marketing and advertising, like you go back to roughly Boston 1704, the newsletter arrives, and essentially like, oh, now there's a reason for advertising to exist. And then there's like a 200-year period where we're starting to figure out what are headlines and what are layouts and how much do we charge for this, and I guess we just do the work for free and we make the money off the media, right? uh, until roughly like, think about like when radio or TV, in this roughly 20-year span, suddenly become things, actual, like people have radios in their houses and they starting to have TVs in their houses. Imagine you or I, like all of a sudden, the first time we have to make a TV spot. what is that? We have to write, it's called, we don't even know what a script is, right? We don't even know what locations are. We don't even know what cameras are, right? And yet very quickly agencies figured out how to make TV spots or make radio spots. And then the idea of branding, right, quickly comes to become a thing that's taught in schools, and there's pedagogy around the idea of brands, right? And then Al Gore invents the internet, right? And all of a sudden we all have to become technologists in very quick order. And now here's AI. So one thing to just say, if you're feeling overwhelmed and nervous and all that stuff, yeah, you come by it naturally. That's and honestly, like that's kind of the state that we're in right now. So I think about AI sort of through four lenses. I'll jam through this stuff really quickly, and hopefully it's useful for all of you. So the first thought is just that I hope you can look at AI and disregard or let go of previous conceptions of software. Most software that we use, Excel, Word, Photoshop, are very deterministic. AI is probabilistic, and we can dive into that distinction. But just to say, how we think about it, it benefits us to have a very open mind when it comes to understanding what is going on with AI kind of writ large. And right, we've been there before, right? In terms of like, wait, what is internet, and like what's happening with smartphones and social and all that kind of stuff. So the more you can have an open mind, I think the better. And just to also then ask yourself, if you're feeling hesitation or concern around AI, to kind of ask the question, like, where's that coming from? Because this stuff is all new, and we have a history as human beings. I mean, the term artificial intelligence was invented in 1956 or coined in 56, but the idea of machines and sentience like goes back to comic books in the like 1900s, right? So a lot of the like emotions around AI are things that we picked up from movies and TV and comic books and things like that. So if you're feeling concern or hesitation, it's like, where's that coming from? Is it coming from something you saw on a TV, when you were 5 or 6, or is it like actual, evidence of what you're actually experiencing? There's a guy named Ethan Malik wrote a really great book called Co-Intelligence. If you're going to read one book, I think Suleiman's book is great, but from a primer standpoint, I think Malik's book is a great place to start. And just this idea that, again, software AI is different. The notion of so many various different kinds of human beings on the planet have access to this technology at the same time. So you are as empowered as, again, like, the kid in Uganda or the entrepreneur in Milwaukee. And what does that mean for us? Like, what are we going to do with that information? So AI is different, kind of keep that in mind. Second point is that, again, from Malik, is this idea of uneven distribution. So like you might go use ChatGPT or Midjourney or Sora or whatever, and the first time you use it, hooray, awesome result, like something great happened. And the second time you use it, it's awful. It's clearly wrong. It's clearly lying. It's clearly made up. So hallucinations. So we're in this period now where there's just huge peaks and valleys of outcomes, and that's just part of the deal. Like we just have to kind of accept that that's what's happening. But this is also starting to then affect roles and responsibilities, right? So everybody on this call is going to wince a little bit when I just tell you all that, guess what? You don't need to be an artist to make art anymore, right? So you used to have to know how to draw. You used to have to know how a camera functioned. You used to have to understand the language of editing and camera movements and things like that. And maybe not anymore. Like if you know how to type and you know how to ask the right kinds of questions, these tools can teach you things that used to take weeks, months, years, or college educations to acquire. And yeah, so we've seen, all the stuff from Toys R Us or Coca-Cola, or the stuff that Heinz was doing, or Pedigree. Like there's some really awful work that's out there, but there's also some stuff that's like, hey, wait, that's actually kind of cool, in the way that it, I think what Pedigree did in terms of saying like the problem is photographs of adoptable pets suck. They're really bad. Like, could we automate them so they look really good? And oh, by the way, place them in spaces where you're more likely to be, to say, I want to adopt that dog. So using AI to enable a broader set of problems, right? I love Nick Law's quote from a year and a half ago at Cannes, like, this is the bar. You know, and I got to say, for a lot of us, like this is actually where our skills and talents kind of matter because we understand what advertising is at its best, and we understand how hard it is to get to a great idea. So if we're willing to embrace AI and leverage it, you know, we're gonna stay ahead. There's a lot of crap out there, a lot of slop that's happening, which means that, hey, clients, we need to be above that, right? Just because you have access to a computer and desktop publishing, right? We went through that revolution. Same thing's happening here. So just a couple of quick things just to kind of spur the idea of difference and some examples. You know, hopefully, let me know if the audio works on this. I think this is an interesting idea.
There's
No
no
audio.
audio, Tim.
Okay. All right. So I got to go. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go back to, sorry, it's share sound. Interesting. All right. I got to click that thing. It's not sharing sound. Well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to, no, wrong.
It's still compelling without the audio.
All right. Well, okay. So point being is that that's not me. That's entirely generated. And it's a clip that I was using for a curriculum based on short form story writing. And so what I did is I gave Hey Jen 2 minutes of just me talking to the camera, reading random stuff off the internet. And that became the training data that now exists in Hey Jen. So I can give it any script I want and I can generate me talking to camera. And by the way, I've got different versions of me. I've got a more like conservative where I don't really move my body much. And I've got another one where I'm using a lot of hand gestures. And of course, I could pull all those into CapCut or Premiere and just slice and dice to create a video of me. Now imagine scenarios where that would be a good concept, like where a client or someone could be like helping with customer service or answering questions, etc. Or we don't have the ability to get out to that location or to that expert to be on camera. How might having a version of talent, whatever you want to define as talent, like available where all you need to do is write the script and you could generate this thing. Interesting stuff there, right? And we could take it even a little bit further. You know what? I wonder if I'm going to pull off switch here. Let's see here. I'm going to
Also,
go
run the
Still hear
film
me?
because even the film is awesome.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Maybe this will work now for this next one. I want you to meet my friend Wayne. Wayne is he's going to attend meetings for me from now on.
Exactly. I'd attend the Zoom meeting, discuss your topics, and provide a summary afterward. Exciting, right? Do you have a meeting coming up soon?
You know, dude, Wayne, this is very exciting for me. And I have lots of meetings coming up soon. So you're telling me you could attend all of these meetings on my behalf?
Absolutely. I can attend all your meetings. Just set me up with the right knowledge base. It's like having a virtual assistant.
So let's say I've got the knowledge base created. I hook you up to Zoom. And then when the meeting starts, you show up. How do you introduce yourself as a replacement for me?
I'd introduce myself by mentioning I'm representing you, sharing your name and role, then dive into the meeting topics. Want to brainstorm a catchy intro?
Oh, yeah, please go right ahead.
How about something like, hi, everyone, I'm Wayne's virtual avatar, here to bring some insightful discussions and a bit of fun. Let's dive in. What do you think?
I mean, right? Who wouldn't want Wayne to attend your meetings on your behalf and bring a bit of fun? But the truth is, like, this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better. And so we start asking ourselves, well, where would that actually make sense? Or where would I not want that? You know, and how am I going to handle it when it does show up, right? Something to think about there. Another example is we all know about like character animation. Runaway's got some interesting stuff now where if you can film it with an iPhone to just get the reference performance, right? You can then kind of play around with a variety of different animation styles. Do you want it to be filmic? Do you want it to be, you know, line drawing? Do you want it to be whatever, right?
And if for those of us who've done animation campaigns before and you recognize how challenging that is and how intensive it was, well, maybe not anymore, at least from a prototype standpoint. So Runway's doing some really, I mean, they have so many interesting tools that I would encourage you to explore. Another one that I'm really a fan of is called Recraft, which is sort of like a Mid-Journey, but like meets Miro. So it's this idea that you can generate an image and then say, okay, but I like this, but now change the colors. And so it saves the one that you were working on and then generates another one of different color stuff. And then you can kind of start to call out specific elements within it and can essentially, you never lose track of where you were. And you can kind of build things out and then you can up-res things. So Recraft is really interesting. Or if you've ever played around with, storyboarding, there's one called Catalyst, Katalist, started by a bunch of European filmmakers who recognize that like storyboards are critical to selling something, right? And it's an expensive and time-consuming process. So how can we make it easier for us as filmmakers, and especially realizing that one of generative AI's challenges is continuity and consistent images. They seem to have solved some of that stuff. Catalyst is an amazing, I found it really interesting with students to kind of say like, help me understand your idea from, beginning, middle to end, and then use this tool to kind of document what you see in terms of like, the other piece of this that's ingrained in a tool like Catalyst is it understands the language of film. So it understands close-up or pan or zoom or, Zolly or whatever. And so it can help both educate people about the language of film while they're building a storyboard. And then, of course, we got to think about ethics and like the lawsuits that are going around Pseudo and Udio, the music generation tools. I think because the music industry is, because of Napster and the music industry's, let's call it skills in the area of lawsuits around content, these two lawsuits are going to be interesting to track in terms of like where are creator rights in the mix of all that stuff. So at the end of the day, like there's all this capability out there. There's so many things you could do. Your job is to be the curator. Your job is to be the directors that say, hey, where's the strategy here? Where's the core idea? It's not just about, fashion and technique, right? Like how do we root the tools in a space that's going to resonate with specific audiences? Couple more thoughts. One thing that's really interesting, I think, about what AI is doing is, so think of it this way. If you pick up a hammer or a pen, I can't say, hey, pen, how do I use you more effectively? Like the pen is inert, it's not intelligent. But I can, if I'm using ChatGPT and I'm dissatisfied with the results I'm getting, I can ask ChatGPT, hey, this isn't working for me. How can I use you more effectively? And ChatGPT will teach me how to use it more effectively. We've never, in the history of humanity, we've never had a tool that could teach you how to use the tool while you are using the tool. Like in the case of Photoshop, I have to go over to YouTube to watch a tutorial. So this aspect, if you're ever frustrated with GPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever, like I would encourage you to say, this isn't working, boss. How can I use you more effectively? And it will attempt to try to help you do that. And that's, I think, a pretty profound ingredient or element of AI as we're using it. I want to show you just one other thought that I also think is kind of profoundly shaping our relationship with AI, and it's this idea of knowledge. So this is a video from a guy named Nate Jones. He worked at Amazon. He's a product manager. He's got a really great TikTok channel, etc. I think he's got some smart things to say. So let's hear it from Nate.
The core of our job market problem right now in tech is that we have predicated all of tech for 40 or 50 years on the idea that knowledge is something that is hard to gain, and it's not anymore. Fast forward to when ChatGPT was released and everything changed. We are now in a world where knowledge is a commodity. And I think that the key is understanding that we are no longer in an economy where knowledge is difficult to get, and we're now in a world where showing that you can solve problems correctly is the new standard.
Right? Like, that's kind of radical if you dive into that, to think about like, wait, I don't need to go to school to have, or read a book to have studied something, because I have a tool that can teach me rather quickly about almost any domain under the sun. And I can get up to speed really quickly in that domain. So, you think about people who are joining Accenture or Boston Consulting Group or an agency, and you're in a new business pitch where all of a sudden you got to get up to speed on a new industry that used to take, researchers going out and distilling stuff to train all of us about what that new industry is so we can get to an insight, so we can get to an idea, right? This is my side monitor. I've got my endless interns, right? And so I will tell them, it's like, you're an analyst at, William Blair or Goldman Sachs. You're working on a presentation for the light truck marketing. I need a SWOT analysis, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll get a response back, right? Like, it's going to give me some stuff back. And it essentially, it's like that moment in The Matrix where it's like, I know Kung Fu, right? That's what can happen here. And so we need to be asking ourselves, like, what does it mean for the way that we deal with clients, the way we deal with staffing, the way that we deal with process, when an individual can get up to speed in an area relatively quick or a lot faster than they could before. So what does that mean, for us in terms of staffing and rates and all that other kind of stuff?
Hey, Tim,
and then-
quick time check. Just a couple more minutes, and I want to leave about 5 minutes for questions.
Cool. I will speed run this. I'm going to send you a link. Unilever, Dove, they wrote a 72-page prompting playbook. You should look at it. It's amazing. It's a gift. Last point. This is the big kahuna. Like, what can you do? Great example from a producer named Paul Aaron at a place called Addition. He did some cool stuff with Google Shopping, where they essentially like automated real-time out-of-home ads, kind of based on conditions of specific neighborhoods, weather, and like cultural calendars. Really cool stuff there. I'll send a link to this.
Tell me when you see something that makes sound.
I see a speaker, which makes sound.
So imagine,
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is the tweeter. It produces high frequency sounds.
so live in the moment image recognition.
Give me a creative alliteration about these.
Creative crayons color cheerfully. They certainly craft colorful creations.
Okay, so now we're writing, right? The same experience, still writing, and
What does that part of the code do?
This code defines encryption and decryption functions. It seems to use AESCBC encryption to encode and decode data based on a key and an initialization vector, IV.
so then last but not least,
That's right.
it is right.
What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway.
Right? So you have a tool at your disposal. You're going to have tools. That's Google's Project Astra, and it's still lightly available now in Google Gemini Live. Like, what does that mean for marketers and customers and clients when a device can translate almost anything at any time and recontextualize it, in the moment? Like, what kind of concepts would you do with a tool like that? Per Malik's point, like putting your heads in the sand and saying this stuff isn't going to happen. That's the wrong answer. And last but not least, like, I'm thinking about like agencies. I love agencies. That's where I grew up, where I cut my teeth. I kind of feel like there's sort of 4 quadrants of the modern agency moving forward. This is a theory I'm working with, I'm wrestling with. And so I'm curious what you all think, and like where you see, your businesses moving forward, and like how you're thinking about AI in combination with, strategy and craft and relationships. And then last but not least, there's a QR code for the newsletter and all that stuff. And I'll just say this: if you want to jump on another call with me and just talk through any and all of this stuff, I'm happy to do it. Again, like I said, you all taught me plenty of stuff and gave me the gift of your knowledge. So if I can help you in some way, shape, or form, I would be happy to return the favor. So, Will, thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, Tim, thanks so much for doing that. That is so eye-opening and in equal parts to me, scary and exciting.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Let's open it up to questions anybody might have out there.
Good stuff, Jim. Thank you very much.
And
I wonder,
I'll send a PDF with links for everything.
yeah, that definitely, that would be helpful. Where do you see this going in like 5 years? I mean, it's changing so much.
What do you mean in 2 years?
Yeah,
Like,
2 years, right? Yeah, right.
Man, read Suleiman's book. I feel like
Yeah, I wrote that down.
it's really hard to say when you've got tools that can kind of reinvent paradigms and functions. Like I feel like we all have to kind of go back to school now and kind of like look at this stuff. For me, it's like the more that you work with the stuff and experiment with the tools, like carve out like in your week, where's the 4-hour block that you're deep into this stuff, trying to train your stuff and playing around with this stuff. And that's where you're going to go, wait a second, I can change that function, or I can change that part of the relationship or whatever. I think we gotta learn by doing.
I have a question for everybody. Are you guys all nice to your Chat GPT or whatever one you use? I'm always super polite because I'm afraid it's going to kill me someday.
I'm the same. I call her Ella. I go, name yourself. What name would you like? She said Ella. I'm like, okay. It's like I'm living out the movie Her.
I just call him Chad.
Chad, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes, but I am nice to him too. It's funny. I don't know why. I'm very polite when there's no need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you have a tool that like it will work with you at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can ask it the same question 15 times and it doesn't get annoyed. Like, or my wife was at, she was at the gym and it's like, someone was asking, she teaches yoga. And so someone was asking her about like, what is that top? And she's like, well, just take a picture of it. And ChatGPT is like, oh, this is like it knew the brand. And here's the thing, and it's not for sale anymore, but you could try this market. It was like, wait, what? Like our old, like you and I with like the dishwasher's broken. So what do? We go to YouTube, right? To like find the person. But now I'm going to ChatGPT. Like a friend of mine and I were troubleshooting, like using coax cable to rewire some Ethernet in the house. Like, could we do that? ChatGPT was more than happy to explain every excruciating detail. What do we need to buy? How do we do it? And we solved the problem. And it's like, oh man, like I didn't need to hire someone. Like I rewired part of my house just using ChatGPT,
I like the practical applications. I use it for work, of course, to write things, tighten up the writing and all that. But I was in an Indian store and I don't know Indian food that well. I'm like, what is this? And I used the voice one. I called and she's like, oh, that's a traditional snack, deep fried, blah, blah, blah. And then as I bought some peas and I got this other vegetable, I didn't know what it was. So I took a picture of it and I said, what is this? Oh, and she says, oh, that's a tindora or ivory gourd. It's popular for the X, Y, and Z. Blah, blah. But like if I were to do that with Google, like what is this and type in the name of, I would get all these links to buy this and like, like recipes, like just give me the answer. You know what I mean? Like, boom. That's why I love it.
Increasingly, Gemini will just do the same thing for you, right? So, wow.
Hey, Tim, I got a question.
Yeah.
So where do you think we are on the taste meter? I love Nick Law's quote, right? So it's kind of like, I'm holding on to that. Like, I know I have taste. I'm a creative director. This is what I've been doing my whole life. I can see stuff ahead, but every time I engage, it gets better. And I'm like, it's like, is taste at that doorstep for us? Like, are we going to, and this is just the fear that's sitting in the back of my head is like, will taste catch up? But I was interested to see where your thoughts are.
I was listening to a Tim Ferriss interview with Chris Sacca, kind of about, and they got into some of this stuff, and then just talking to friends of mine who, by the way, if any of you are interested, a friend of mine leads a thing on Friday mornings. It's basically art directors and designers, like, your turn, talk about your Midjourney process, or your turn, talk about Sora and VO2 or whatever. So if you're interested, ping me and I'll get you in the group. And we were talking about exactly this. And I don't think taste for lazy people, for people who don't care, the race is already over.
Yeah.
There's so much slop. I mean, you've got people who are believing that there's whatever, shrimp Jesus out there,
Yeah.
But I do think the bar is raised, and I do think that your ability to surprise, your ability to kind of subvert and cause people to go, wait, well, what is that? And like lean in. I don't know if AI is going to get there yet. I don't know if like visually there's a lot of tricks and things, but I still feel like we have value. Maybe I'm deluding myself, but I still feel like we have value. And it's rooted in like, wait, who is this for? We are trying to persuade a specific type of human being. So like that whole Seth Godin, like, you know, behavioral economics, like all marketing is about changing human behavior. Like, I think that we still understand that magic trick a little bit better than the machines do. And so we have this ability to curate and realize like where that's going to resonate with people. And maybe even more important, our clients are deathly afraid. So it's the relationship that we can guide them through that and help them see like, yeah, AI could do some stuff there, but how are you going to know? Like, so I think that value in our relationship is still what kind of is critically important. I don't know a client who's like, I'd rather deal with an AI than you.
Yeah.
I think we still have the ability of the happy accident that is rooted in our experience. And that's the piece that I think if you think that, at least as it stands now, if you think that AI is going to do that, you're going to end up with some of the crappy advertising we've seen.
Yeah, and also just know when something's gold. When the accident happens, we know that's great. And AI would, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it would know it's great. It's like, do you think it's great? It would ask you back, you know. But yes, agreed.
I think we're gonna have to end it there, you guys. I'm sorry. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. Tim, thanks so much for doing this. This was really cool. Our first Ideasicle X learning session for the experts.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Tim.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Tim.
Everybody.
Take the time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.